Here we go with the high voltage again. 28 kilovolts here. Don't do this in your mother's basement.
Kids, don't try this at home.
You'll fry and burn her house down. You notice where he's standing?
Far, far away.
I'm like, where can you even get a 28 kilovolt transformer? Alibaba? Hmm? Well, hello, my name is Jeremiah. This is Brunky Tech, and let's review shorts. All right, let's see. What do we got here? So up top, that looks like a private jet. In the middle, that's what? F-16? I know if I get that wrong, y'all correct me in the chat. Then it looks like a Tesla. Then is that a Mazda?
The Lotus.
The Lotus.
And then it's another sports car. Finally, we have a Formula F1 car. And then we have a motorcycle. So who do you think's going to win? So I'm going to go with the motorcycle, the Formula F1 car. Then it's probably a tie between the Jet or the Tesla. And then, let's see. After that, you have the two sports cars. And then finally, you have the passenger jet. You guys, tell me your predictions below. There they go. Oh, did you see it? Who got last? Okay. Yeah, that was right. A pretty fun race to watch. But I bet you if this was over 5 miles, those jets will be toasting everything else.
Toast!
I like that. You actually get to see the interaction. So everything you do in life, there's an equal and there's an opposite reaction throughout life.
An entire universe vibrating in harmony.
When you push over here, it affects over here. And this is just a visual repetition of that. As you can see, I like it.
If your girlfriend or boyfriend tell you that they don't feel the spark between you anymore, don't worry, because I invented the perfect solution for you. This is the relationship saver.
Babies save relationships.
No time. Just grab it and tell your Pookie Bear. With this device, you'll be able to feel the spark every day.
Every time. I have to say, this one's a little bit more safer than the last one. I mean, it's probably what? 3 volts right there? You might get a little shock out of it. You might piss off the girlfriend or the wife, but, you know, it might add a little bit of spark.
Come on, spark it up.
Did you know about the 5 U.S. states that would be sacrificed in case of a world war? The United States government has chosen the states of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, Montana, and North Dakota to be the sacrificial.
What are you doing? Those are the best states. You ever been to Montana? Lovely place. Wyoming? It's definitely up there as well. Maybe not Nebraska.
Nebraska? What's in Nebraska?
But those other ones are dang fun.
Lambs if a nuclear war breaks out. But why these 5 states? Well, during the Cold War era, the U.S. grew increasingly concerned about Russia amid the nuclear arms race.
Russia.
Wouldn't hesitate to use nuclear weapons on major U.S. cities. To safeguard these populated areas, the government came up with a strategic plan. They moved all the ICBM nukes to the newly built missile silos in the center plains of these 5 states. This decision would ultimately force the Russians, or any other enemy, to target these silos first to stop the US from retaliating, and would also allow the US sufficient time to counter any incoming missiles mid-air. So,
should those 5 states be our sacrificial lambs? I can't disagree with the strategy, but those states are beautiful. Especially get up to Montana, right up there in Glacier National Park. That place I'm going to get lost in one of these days. Oh, here he is back to destroy more hardware.
I'm gonna break all your toys.
By the looks of it, it looks to be a hard disk drive.
176 days ago, I buried some hard drives in my backyard. Then, I had to move away. So now, 6 months later, we're back to find out if these hard drives still work. That is, if we can find them. Over the last half a year, we've had a historic amount of rainfall in this area, so there's just no way this thing still works, right?
It is indestructible.
I mean, check out the condition of our SATA pins, and on top of that, the breathing hole itself is completely plugged with dirt. Although that said, the more we clean this up, the less corrosion we actually notice. Now that our SATA pins are wiped off, it's time for the moment of truth. Does this hard drive still function after being buried underground for the last 6 months?
These guys are indestructible.
Does detect this WD drive, and on top of that, opening File Explorer definitively shows that this hard drive is still functional. Plus, if we double click inside, we can actually, whoa, my yeaster paste secret formula. Don't look.
What did I tell you about those hard disk drives? Indestructible. They'll keep your data safe for a while. Though my recommendation for storage wouldn't be outside. It'd be more in a bag, a static-proof bag. Somewhere dry and well-regulated temperature, not dirt.
Let's turn this upside down. Lots of bubbling. Did you see that? So we really are heating up the air there. I like that. Look at that. We're using up the oxygen. You can see the candle ready to go out. I wonder if we'll even cover the candle. And look at that. Yes, we've now drowned the candle. So that goes up with that narrow mouth here. That goes up a little bit higher. Very, very interesting.
All right, so what happens here is whenever there is a flame, there's a chemical reaction that's happening. And so it's really taking carbon and the hydrogen and turning it into carbon dioxide as well as water. And so you get an effect where it heats up the air. It tries to expand it. Those chemical reactions are happening into the air, replacing oxygen with carbon dioxide and water. The air volume actually decreases as the flame continues to burn up, and then that's creating, eventually it'll cool down, and that reduces the pressure, and it'll equalize the pressure, making the water volume go up.
Okay, fixing the core. Do we wrap tape around
No,
cord?
do that.
Around the wires that are exposed?
No.
Looks good. All right, twist the wires
Nope.
together. Put the shrink wrap sleeves on there. There you go. All good, right? No, you need butt splices in
And spliced them together.
there. Something to hold that wire. That can still pull apart. So, yeah, no thumbs up here.
Best practices, when you break a wires, you got to splice it together instead of using shrink sleeve. You'll eventually use shrink sleeve, but as suggested in the video, you have a butt splice that's just like this. So what you do, you put the wire on both sides, you heat it up, and this little metal part that's solder, it'll solder it together, and you'll have a strong connection. Now there's crimp solder, or excuse me, there's crimps that you can also use, but I would highly suggest getting a set of these. This just makes everything in your life so much easier.
Here's why engineers may use capacitors when counting with computers. How many times has a button been pressed? In our example, a button press is detected when its status drops from high to low. However, the mechanics of the button sometimes trigger this status drop multiple times during one physical press of the button. This can cause the computer to think the button was pressed 2, 3, or more times, which is a problem known as bouncing. Engineers use hardware like capacitors to debounce the button so that only one press is detected. Here's a diagram of our circuit, and the debouncing capacitor is placed across the button. This capacitor provides a little extra charge during those bouncing moments so that the computer still sees the button at a high level. See how many times it's skipping numbers? Now here's what it looks like with a capacitor. Only one press is detected each time.
Yep. So that's actually a pretty useful tool right there. So if you're designing a circuit, you have a button that attached to it, you can put a debounce. Or if you're running that into a microcontroller, you can actually program one in there. So that's the route that I usually take, is you program it into your software. So that way you save yourself from having that capacitor for that debounce. But having it in hardware is handy as well too.
It is believed that the ferrite cylinder protects the cable from external interference. Let's take an old Super VGA cable and
I would say it protects it from, it doesn't protect the cable, it prevents the cable from propagating electric noise throughout it, and it protects the electronics on both ends.
Extract the ferrite from it. Next, we're gonna need a radio transmitter. You can use any radio remote control operating in the range of 200 MHz and above. We'll also need a simple detector using...
Actually, most ferrite beads allow you to remove noise far below the 200 megahertz range. Times and options that you'll need to use a ferrite bead below that 200 megahertz range.
Using 2 germanium diodes with an LED and a wire soldered to them. When the wire is connected to the antenna and a radio signal is transmitted, the LED flickers. Let's see what happens if we wrap the wire around the cylinder. As you can see, the LED has now stopped flickering since ferrite suppresses high frequency. So here's what the cylinder actually does. By suppressing high frequency, it protects the environment, basically the neighboring electronic devices, from interference emitted by the cable.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a useful tool. Believe it or not, you have some of those on your PCs. So those power supplies that provide your CPU a clean signal, some of those might have a Ferrite core on there. Only difference is it's a PCB mounted one, and the one that he showed is a core that wraps around the cable.